Imagine waking up, pouring your morning cup of coffee, and then getting to build a business around doing what you love. It might sound like a dream, but it could also be closer than you think. I know because I'm in the middle of it. In this episode, I'll show you how to start your art business from scratch with simple steps, cozy encouragement, and maybe some unconventional marketing advice that might just change everything. If your heart's been whispering to start, this is your sign. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Clay, a little series where we sip on some coffee, sculpt using polymer clay, and chat about the real raw sides of being a human, a creative, a small business owner. And today we're going to be talking about how to start an art business at home. I've had a lot of people reach out asking advice for how to start a small business, what it's like, trying to decide if they want to start their business. Since I am only 6 months into my journey, everything is still fresh on my brain. So I figured this would be a good time to make this video. So if you're looking to start your own small business, or you're just curious what it's like to start up a small business and do it out of your home, then this video is for you. I hope you enjoy it. Also, if you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I run a small handmade polymer clay shop out of my tiny New York City apartment, out of this little section of my living room. But first, I just want to say that I know starting a business is very exciting, but it's also very valid if you feel terrified and scared to do it. I had many sleepless nights laying in bed worrying, trying to decide if this is the right path for me, if I should open an art shop, how I should go about opening my art shop, and all the uncertainties and the unknowns surrounding it. If this is your very first time setting up a business, if it feels overwhelming, you're not alone. It is overwhelming. I've been there, I know what it's like. But the good news is that so many people have done it, that it's definitely possible. And if they've done it, then you can do it too. And it's a lot of firsts, and like any kind of first, starting any new challenge, any new project, once you learn how to do it, then you've learned how to do it and you've done it. And especially when it comes to setting up a business and kind of putting the foundation for yourself, once you've laid that foundation, then it's there. You know, like if you're building a house, you make the foundation once, you build it up, and then you have the structure to live out of. That's like building a business too. It's a lot to do up front, it's a lot to learn, but you can definitely do it. And once you've done it, then it's all done. And you don't have to do it again. Unless you decide to start up a second business. But even then, you've been through the process once. And so you know what you're doing. So if you feel like you have no idea what you're doing and it feels overwhelming and you feel terrified, I've been there. So many people have been there. You are not alone. And I'm not gonna make you wait till the very end to give you my two main pieces of advice when going through this process. And it's also something I want you to keep in mind as you continue watching this video. One, genuinely take it step by step. Don't feel like you have to have it all figured out at once. Just do one thing and then the next and the next, and it'll accumulate. And then finally you'll get to the point where you have a business established. And then two, make sure you're keeping your main reason, your main drive and passion and purpose in mind as you're going through the process, because it's gonna be that that's gonna keep you motivated and keep you going. So vision yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 years down the line with where you wanna be with your business. And let that vision of where you want to get to be the main motivator that will keep you pushing throughout this process, because that is gonna help you get over the hard steps, get you through the scary parts, even though it's not really scary. You don't need to be scared, honestly, but if you feel scared, you're totally valid. I was scared. Don't forget that. So I got my desk all ready, all set up to start claying. I just cleaned everything down with a little bit of rubbing alcohol to get rid of the dust. And today we have some orders to make. Back behind me, I've already made some orders yesterday, which if you watched my previous vlog, I made 2 strawberry pancake keychains, and then this is actually a commission. It's a little Florence in a wheelchair. And so that's what I did yesterday. All I have to do left to finish those is add liquid Sculpey, so add some coffee into the little mugs and then some syrup onto the little pancakes. Oh, and if you didn't know, I just launched a new collection. It's my breakfast collection. I'll pop some things up here. So what I need to make today is 3 of the breakfast magnet trio sets, 2 of the mini egg Florence bag charms, 1 pair of the tiny strawberry charm earrings, and then 1 croissant photo holder. I think think I'm going to start out with making a bunch of little eggs because I need to make 5 fried eggs. So for eggs, I always like mixing some of the white with the translucent clay for the egg whites. I just find it gives it more of like an eggy look than if you just purely use white. So we're gonna mix a couple of these together using this Sculpey clay conditioner. And a little side note is I always like to have just like a little bit of translucent clay, which I consider like my dust catcher. And so I don't actually ever put this into an item. It's just a little piece of clay that I have that I can roll through my hands to pick up any little bits of dust. I just find this works better than just cleaning my hands purely with paper towel and alcohol. That's a little tip. So the very first thing you need to do before starting a business is decide, what is your business gonna be? What kind of art do you wanna sell? Ask yourself, like, what do I genuinely love creating that I could create all the time and that's sustainable and also healthy for my body to be creating a lot of? Because while there's a lot of amazing crafts, there's also some that there's only a certain extent you can actually healthily make things. There's kind of a limit. And just some quick ideas are, polymer clay, jewelry, ceramics, art prints, stickers, home decor, greeting cards, maybe cute little blankies for babies. I don't know, there's a lot of things you can make and you can sell. Stationery products of all kinds are also very popular to make and sell. But as you're creating your product, like in your mind, imagining what you want your product or products to be, consider what is your unique selling point. And this is essentially, what makes your brand, your products, your items stand out from the crowd, what makes them special, and consider how are you going to help or serve other people with your items. Because one of the main changes that happens when you take an art form and you monetize it and you turn it into a business is that you have to be thinking about your customers, kind of start getting into that entrepreneurial business mindset. As you're thinking about all of this, I do think it's really important to consider the fact that monetizing your hobby does change it. It goes from just being this art form that was honestly kind of like your creative outlet and your relief and your escape from the world. And not to say that it's still not going to be that to some extent, but there is a certain amount of pressure added onto your art form because you do have to now think, how are my products going to help people? How are my products going to serve people? And at the end of the day, there might be some times where you don't want to create and you don't want to do your art. And instead of it just being a hobby where you can just be like, well, I'm just not going to do it today, you kind of just have to do it. But not that's like a negative thing. Like I think with any job, no matter how much you love it, there's gonna be days where you don't want to work. You don't want to do it. And if you're like me, where you're kind of like, if someone tells you to do something, there's a little like internal thing in you that's like, well, I don't want to do that now that you told me to do that. Then that kind of sometimes happens with myself. Like if I schedule something in advance of like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing on this day, then I get to that day and all of a sudden I'm like, but I don't want to do that anymore because I like have to do it. Like it's a silly mind thing. And just like no two real fried eggs are completely identical, none of these handmade eggs are completely identical either. And I also think that's the beauty of like handmade products is that even though it's technically the same product, every single one is its own unique creation because there's gonna be just little tiny little differences in all of them. If you wanna sell handmade items or you wanna manufacture items, you can't do that if you don't have a place to sell them. So the next thing to consider is, where are you going to sell your items? Are you gonna sell online, in person? Are you gonna do both, a little combination of them? I'm just gonna use this little tiny toothbrush. This is technically a little dog toothbrush because I have a little dog. Don't worry, my dog's never brushed her teeth with this toothbrush. This is a clean one, but they come in like a pack of 10. And so I stole this and I use it around the edges to give it that kind of like crispy edge. And then also I'm gonna put, talking like this is my little wand, I'm gonna put some chalk pastels around the edges too to color it in. And by giving it some texture first, the chalk pastels will also kind of like fall into a nice little like pattern. Where are you gonna sell your items? So personally, I sell on both Etsy and Shopify. When I first started, I just did Shopify. And the reason that I chose to go right into making my own website is that I knew I wanted to make this my full-time job as quickly as possible. I mean, I have been doing it full-time this whole time because I've been part of a self-employment assistance program, which I'm very grateful for. And so I'm hoping that I can continue to sustain myself full-time off my company. I think if you want to go ahead and have more control over your website and your products, making your own website is the way to do that. A lot more control over it. But of course, with that, there's also more responsibility and more work to put into your website. Shopify does have a lot of templates and it makes it pretty easy to set up your own website. But on the other hand, I do actually have an Etsy, which I just started a couple of months ago. And the main reason I started my Etsy was for international orders. Plus I wanted to do a little test, see if that would bring natural organic traffic into my shop. And so far it has not. It has not brought organic traffic through their search engine. It's just been people that have found me through my social media anyways. So that's a big thing to consider. If you're going to be doing social media a lot and promoting your products that way, doing a lot of the work yourself, then having your own website also is better because the fees on Etsy are kind of high, I'm not gonna lie, but there's a lot less like upfront costs. Like for Shopify, there is a subscription cost you have to do. For me, I did the annual, which is a few $100s, so it's not crazy, but you know, that's not cheap. Whereas for Etsy, there is a 20 cents listing fee. And then when you actually sell the product, that's when the rest of the fees come out. So if you're gonna be selling a lot of stuff, the fees would add up. But if you're just starting out and you have a hobby, and especially if you're doing this like alongside another job and you want to have the setup process and the maintenance be easier, honestly, Etsy is not a bad route to choose. It's a good route to choose, I should say. It's a good option, I think. Here I'm just using a little alcohol on a Q-tip to clean off any little dust on the clay. And of course, there's also other website options too. I have not used them myself, but of course there's like Wix and Squarespace, there's WordPress, there is Big Cartel, which has, I think, free options if you want to kind of have more control of your website. Do your own research and just kind of see what looks best for you. And also know that no matter what you do at the beginning, you're not like locking yourself in to do for the rest of your business. So you can always start off doing one thing and then kind of switch to a different platform later down the road. It's all trial and experimentation and just playing around and seeing what works. All of the little teeny tiny eggs made. And so I'm going to move on to making these keychains. And one thing I do to make it just a little bit more uniform when it comes to creating it, plus it's a bit of a time saver, is that I actually write down exactly how many ounces of clay I need for the head and the body, and then I weigh it out using my little teeny tiny scale. So I'm going to do that while we start talking about something that's very exciting. That's sarcasm, by the way. Setting up the legal side of your business, sole proprietor versus LLC, business bank account, finances. I won't dive too deep into this, but I do want to touch on it a little bit. Hopefully it'll help you. And if you don't really want to listen about it, then you can just watch what I'm doing with my hands. Hopefully the claying aspect will make it a little more thrilling. So for my keychains, I use this 18K gold Sculpey. It looks like this. It's not actually real 18K gold. I don't think I need to say that, but just in case. I personally decided to set up an LLC for my company, and the main reason I decided to do that was that I wanted to really take it seriously, and I knew down the road I would want to eventually establish an LLC, so I figured why not just do it now. But being a sole proprietor is also totally valid. The main difference with an LLC is that you're creating an entity outside of yourself, so it does provide some like legal protections against you as a person. Say, I don't know, someone for some reason wanted to sue me over something, over my little bag charm, then all of my personal assets would be protected and they'd just be suing the company, not me as a person. I mean, it's very unlikely to happen, but you never know. I do think that if I was just starting this as a side hobby alongside a full-time job or another like primary part-time job, I honestly would probably just do sole proprietor because it's a lot easier, you know? There's not as much paperwork that goes into it, not as much setup process. And of course, you can always start as a sole proprietor and then switch and establish an LLC down the road. For me, I knew at some point down the road I would want to establish an LLC, so I figured I'm just gonna do it right at the beginning and just get it done with. And now I'm just gonna roll all these little clumps of clay into kind of like oval shapes. But regardless if you choose to do an LLC or a sole proprietor, and by the way, I'm pretty sure the majority of people like on Etsy are sole proprietors, but either way, I would definitely recommend getting a business bank account to help keep your personal and your business finances separate, regardless if you have an LLC or you're a sole proprietor. Also, this is all based on like United States stuff. So if you live in a different country, maybe it's similar. I don't know. I can only speak to the states where I live. And also speaking of finances, make sure you are keeping track of all the costs you put into your business from the get-go. And this can just be like a simple spreadsheet. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but especially if you have startup costs, like I had startup costs that were just, I had to pay for out of my personal banking account before I got my business bank account. Make sure you're keeping track of everything, keep track of your finances. And if you just start from the beginning, even if it's a very simple system, your future self will thank you. I have been doing an okay job with this. I am not as organized as I should be. Everything's kept track of, but it's not like a concise thing. So that is definitely an area that I will get better at doing. I will get better at bookkeeping. We can all get better at bookkeeping together. Now that we have our egg things all done, oh, they just popped over. Should have known that would happen. Let's move on to making our croissants. We're gonna make 3 of these mini croissant magnets for the trio magnet set, and then 1 croissant photo holder. So this is on the menu next. To make the croissant, I mix a little bit of the ecru with some translucent clay. I love mixing a little bit of translucent clay with colors. It doesn't make like a huge difference, but it makes enough of a difference that it's worthwhile to me. So that's what we're going to do right now. But once you've decided what you want to sell and you've decided how you're going to sell it, and then figuring out your business structure. So now let's dive into some more of like these smaller details. When you're starting to decide like what items you want to create and launch for like your very first shop opening, your shop drop, I recommend always doing a little less than too much. It's better to have fewer items that are more tailored and, refined and worked on than a bigger catalog. Plus, you don't want to give your audience like choice paralysis. And if you're in the game of maybe manufacturing some items, oh my, I'm falling apart. So I think I was saying, if you're gonna also manufacture anything, whether that be, even something as simple as like a thank you card, I recommend if you're gonna manufacture, getting either a smaller amount of items manufactured, or I would even do like a pre-sale situation. And then of course, a pro to doing handmade items is you don't have to worry about having an overstock, because you can kind of like make as they come in or do limited drops. There's a lot of options and different paths you can take for running a business. But one challenging area that I see basically all small business owners struggle with and talk about is knowing how to price your items. This can be very hard. There's a few ways to go about this, but I don't recommend just like guessing a price and putting it up there. One way to go about this is that you can manually calculate how much the items should be. But one way to do that would be like a simple pricing formula where essentially you add up how much time it takes you to make it, and that would be, figuring out like what do you want your hourly wage to be, and then using that in the formula, then adding to that like the cost of materials and packaging supplies and any other small little costs that could go into it. And then the other way is basically, look at people in your similar field and your niche, see how they're pricing their items, and kind of do it a bit comparatively with them. Almost all done. I just need to add some shading to it really quick. And while we do that, and while we make the rest of the croissants, the mini ones, we are going to dive into talking about marketing and branding. Because if people don't know you have products, if they don't know about it, then how is anyone ever gonna know about it? How are they ever gonna buy anything? Knowing how to communicate with people that you have a business and what you sell and how your items can, enhance their life in one way or another will ultimately be the big game changer. At the end of the day, I think being authentic and real and true to who you are and to your art, and posting the content and making the items that feel most authentic to you is honestly your best bet, because people can tell, like people can see that and feel that through a screen. Like even if you're the best actor in the world, in order to make this sustainable and to make people want to stick around and support you, like you just have to be yourself. And yeah, maybe that means you're gonna go against some typical like business handbook advice stuff. You might do some contradictory things, but that's also okay because like we're entrepreneurs and we're artists, which means we're literally creators. So trust your gut and trust yourself. And most importantly, learn how to trust yourself, because it is a skill you have to learn and practice. So I think your best bet is to get to know really who you are and what you have to offer. And then afterwards, see what people gravitate towards most, what they like and what you make, and let that guide you. All right, I just ended up taking like a 45-minute break to eat some lunch and walk my dog, because while it probably seems to you like I am a speedy little sculpting clay queen, I don't know if you can call yourself a queen. Is that egotistical? I don't know, but it's what we did, so we're gonna roll with it. If you can't make yourself laugh, then what are you doing in life? You gotta have some humor. But as I was saying, I end up editing all this so it seems very quick and cohesive. But to give you a little behind the scenes glimpse, I started this whole process of like filming and sculpting at 10:30 a.m. and it is now 4 p.m. and we still got some stuff we gotta do. So this does take a long time. I just always end up putting it in a pretty little concise package at the end for you, so you can just watch the best parts of it. But we are almost done. We just need to make the little coffee cup magnets, which look like this. And then one pair of these little strawberry earrings. So let's keep going. We are on a roll. I am energized from lunch. I'm feeling good. Let's go on. And during my break, I also gave my little workspace a little clean because it was getting a little messy, you know? For these little magnets, I actually already have some clay mixed. This is just like a very light blue color with a hair of the ecru, this like tan color mixed into it. I am getting tired at the end of the day and I'm starting to get a little loopy. To make my cup flat on the one side to actually like make it a magnet that will stick on the fridge, I use a very ingenious method of making the cup as I normally would make any other cup. And then I simply squish it against the board to make one side of it flat. I know, genius, I'm a genius. That's it though. It's some things are complicated to figure out and other things are actually quite simple, which I feel like is a very good analogy for life and for starting a little cozy art business. On the topic of marketing, people don't just buy art, they buy the story, the meaning, maybe even because of the person behind it. And that's what sells. That is the thing that you are giving people. You're helping people feel connected to themselves. You're offering comfort, warmth, emotions. The mugs, whoa, that's zoomed in, are all done. So on to the last one, strawberries. A lot of art, in my opinion, is you're helping people connect to certain emotions that they might not naturally connect with every single day or connect with as much as they would like to. And so you're helping people live a more emotionally fulfilling life or a more comforting life or a more inspirational life. It goes beyond just the item. It is everything that's connected to that item. But I think that's also why if you're not going into it for the right reasons, if you're not, being genuine in like your marketing and your branding, which I feel like sometimes marketing and branding have like negative connotations to them, but I think there's a very moral and authentic way to do it. And I think that's kind of how you have to do it if you want to be successful with art. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm just one girl in the world. I'm just one girl. Just like that, we are done sculpting a little strawberry charm for the earrings, and I bake little charms and stuff on little hooks. So that way there's no like indents from the pan after baking, and it's just like totally nice and crisp, because otherwise if you just like bake something straight out of a pan, especially if it's round, there'll be like a tiny little flat spot on it. So this is my solution. I think that is it for this video. Everything is sculpted. The only final thing I need to do before baking is add the liquid Sculpey, but I'm gonna do that right before I actually stick these in the oven tonight so that there is, you know, no chance of it tipping over and spilling and making a mess, or at least a lot less of a chance. I hope this video was helpful. There were some good little tidbits, and maybe it's making you feel a little more confident and secure and less scared going into starting your own business. And yeah, just thank you so much for being here and for watching. It is now, if you're curious, 5 o'clock. So I've literally spent my whole entire day sculpting and filming. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Coffee and Clay. If you have any requests for topics you'd like me to talk about, or different like items or things you'd like to see me sculpt in the future, please feel free to drop a comment below. And are you thinking of starting a business? If you are, let me know. I'm very curious about that kind of stuff. I love hearing about other people's small business journeys and what they're doing and what they want to do and pursue. And yeah, I think that's all I have left to say for this video. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. Do something creative today, and also do something good for yourself. And I will hopefully see you in the next video. All right, bye friends.